A man stands in the dust of a newly built city, the dark bronze of a freshly forged sword cooling in his hand. Most people read the 4th chapter of Genesis as a simple, tragic genealogy, a list of hard-to-pronounce names. It is a ridiculous promise. He could live 1,000 lifetimes and never make a dent in the interest. The law dictates that he, his wife, and his children must be sold into slavery to liquidate whatever assets remain. The ledger demands blood. The math requires payment. But the king looks at the man trembling on the stones. The text says the king is moved with pity. He speaks the word, Aphiemi. He lets it go. He sends the crushing weight away. The king is not restructuring alone. He is burning the ledger. The man walks out of the throne room, a completely free man. The chains are unclasped. The massive, life-ending debt is permanently canceled. But the story does not end there. This newly freed man walks out into the bright Galilean sun. He immediately tracks down a fellow servant. This second man owes him 100 denarii. 100 denarii is about 3 months' wages. It is a real debt. It is real money. It represents real theft and real loss. But compared to 10,000 talents, it is a microscopic rounding error. The freed man does not extend grace. He lunges forward. He wraps his hands around the second man's throat. He squeezes. You can hear the gasp for air. You can see the second man drop to his knees in the dust, meant to rush us from the exile of Eden into the catastrophic flood of Noah. And it does move fast, begging, with the exact same words the first man used moments ago, "Have patience with me, and I will pay you." The first man refuses. He throws his fellow servant into a dark, damp debtor's prison. The math of Lamech instantly reasserts itself. The man who just had an ocean of debt erased cannot stomach a single drop of offense. He demands his 77-fold vengeance. He demands the ledger be perfectly balanced. When the king hears what happened, his fury is absolute. The unforgiving servant is dragged back in. The cancellation is revoked. And he is handed over to the jailers until he can pay back the original. Impossible sum. Jesus finishes the story, and the crowd stands completely silent. But the detail that changes how this entire system works isn't just the sheer size of the numbers. It is what actually happens to the massive sum of money when the king says the word. When a king erases a debt of 10,000 talents, the math does not just magically disappear. The money is actually gone. The royal treasury must now absorb a loss so staggering it would bankrupt a modern nation. The physical silver will never be returned to the heavy iron vaults. The thousands of hours of labor will never be recovered. But if you look closer at this specific scene at the exact, terrifying number Lamech claims for himself, you start to see a blueprint being drawn in the dirt, and the king is forced to swallow the entire cost of the servant's catastrophic failure. This is the brutal, unavoidable economics of grace. Forgiveness is not the magical evaporation of a wound. It is the deliberate absorption of a debt. When you choose the path of Aphiemi, when you choose to cancel what someone owes you, you are making the agonizing decision to bear the cost of their actions in your own body. If someone crashes into your car and you forgive the debt, you are the one who has to pay the mechanic. You are the one handing over the paper bills. You take the financial blow so they do not have to. The exact same law applies to the emotional ledgers we carry. When someone slanders your name in a quiet room, and you choose to forgive them, the damage to your reputation does not instantly heal. The sharp sting of the insult still burns in your chest. You simply choose to endure the humiliation yourself, rather than dragging them into the public square to tear them apart. You absorb the blow. We spend our entire lives acting as amateur debt collectors. We wake up exhausted because the human nervous system was not designed to carry the heavy, paralyzing weight of a dozen open accounts. We replay old arguments in the shower. 77. The real question of this text isn't about how many people Lamech killed. It is this. We lie awake, staring at the ceiling in the dark, carefully recalculating the interest on a betrayal that happened 10 years ago. Vengeance is exhausting because the ledger is never truly settled. Even when you strike back, the math always feels slightly unbalanced. Lamech, understood this math, and he was terrified of being on the losing end of it. The entire architecture of 77-fold vengeance was built to ensure that Lamech would never have to absorb a single ounce of suffering. If someone strikes Lamech, he transfers the pain immediately back onto them, multiplied by a devastating factor. He forces the offender to bleed out in the dirt, so that his own internal ledger remains perfectly untouched. Vengeance is the violent refusal to carry the cost of someone else's sin. But the economy Jesus is building operates on a completely inverted system. He is telling Peter that to be a citizen of this new kingdom, you have to be willing to empty your own vaults. You have to be willing to look at the person who wounded you, tally up the exact cost of what they stole, and then willingly tear the heavy papyrus scroll in half. It feels like a crushing, impossible demand, and it would be impossible if you were the one required to generate the grace. But the only reason Peter is being asked, why did he choose that specific multiplier? And the answer changes how you read the most famous teaching on forgiveness in the entire New Testament. To absorb the petty debts of the people around him is because of the terrifying reality of what is already sitting inside his own ledger. You feel it in the tightening of your jaw when you wake up. You feel the sudden spike of heat in your chest when their name flashes on the glowing glass of your phone. You carry the heavy, invisible parchment into the shower. You carry it into your car. You grip the leather steering wheel until your knuckles turn white. And you run the math again. The math always says you are in the red. The math always says you are owed. Someone took your time. Someone took your reputation. Someone took a piece of your childhood that you can never get back. Someone broke a promise and left you holding the pieces. You want your 77-fold. You want them to feel the exact weight of the pain they caused. You want to see them on their knees in the dirt. You want the algorithm to balance. But the ledger is not a shield. It is a cage. When you refuse to drop the paper, you lock yourself inside the debtor's prison. You become the warden of your own suffering. You spend all of your energy guarding a dark cell, convinced you are punishing them, when you are actually slowly suffocating yourself. Jesus is looking at Peter, but the command is reaching straight through the centuries to you. He is asking you to look at the 10,000 talents. Lamech's song is not a random boast from a violent man. It is the mathematical formula for human escalation. You owed the king. Think of the dark inventory of your own quiet moments. Think of the words you have weaponized against people who loved you. Think of the secrets you have buried. Think of the betrayals you have perfectly justified in the silence of your own mind. Think of the times you have played Lamech, swinging the bronze sword in your own living room, ensuring that whoever hurt you paid an immediate and terrible price. The debt is staggering. It is a mountain of silver you could never drag out of the royal treasury. And the king looked at you. He looked at your bankrupt, trembling hands. He spoke the word, Aphiemi. He let it go. He took the massive financial blow. He absorbed the ruin. If you are aggressively strangling someone over 100 denarii grudge while standing knee-deep in a 10,000 talent grace, you have completely misunderstood the universe you live in. You cannot hoard Lamech's vengeance while claiming the king's forgiveness. The two economies cannot coexist in the same human heart. One will always suffocate the other. You have to drop the paper. You have to open your fists. But Jesus knew exactly how terrifying this command is. He knew that telling a human being to absorb a brutal blow without striking back goes against every survival instinct encoded in our DNA. He knew it was an impossible demand if he was merely a teacher offering advice. But he was not just offering advice. He was preparing to. It is the architecture of vengeance, designed to make sure the person who hurt you bleeds infinitely more than you did. Walk into the center of the vengeance machine himself. Because 77-fold escalation always demands blood. The algorithm Lamech, started in the dirt of Genesis, has to be paid out in full. It cannot just evaporate. Someone has to step in front of the bronze sword and refuse to swing back. And a few months after this conversation on the road, the ultimate debt collector will arrive on a hill just outside the city gates. The dust settles on a rocky, skull-shaped hill just outside the gates of Jerusalem. Roman soldiers are driving heavy iron spikes through human flesh. You can hear the dull, sickening thud of the mallet echoing off the limestone walls of the city. The Romans do not practice grace. They practice the math of Genesis chapter 4 with terrifying, imperial efficiency. Rome's entire grip on the ancient world is built on the 77-fold principle. If you steal from a governor, they burn your village. If you challenge Caesar, they do not just execute you, they strip you naked, nail you to rough timber, and hoist you into the harsh Judean sun so you can slowly suffocate while the public watches. They demand disproportionate, absolute vengeance for any disruption of their peace. Jesus hangs in the dead center of the ultimate vengeance machine. The ledger of human history is being balanced in his own body. Every ounce of wrath, every demand for retribution, every swing of Lamech's bronze sword. We are a species obsessed with keeping the score. Even now, you carry a ledger in your mind that has accumulated since the dawn of time, is concentrated onto this single afternoon. You can smell the sweat. You can smell the copper scent of blood drying on the wood. The crowds passing by on the road hurl insults. The soldiers casually divide his clothing, rolling dice in the dirt beneath his feet. The religious leaders sneer, demanding he prove his divine authority by calling down a legion of angels to slaughter his oppressors. They are begging him to run the algorithm. They want him to balance the math. They want him to pull the sword, but he refuses to swing back. Jesus looks down at the men who are gambling for his tunic. He looks at the political leaders who dragged him through a rigged midnight trial. He looks at the executioners who ripped the skin from his back and drove the iron through his wrists. He feels the crushing weight of asphyxiation building in his lungs. He opens his mouth. Father, forgive them. He speaks the word, Aphiemi. Let it go. Send the offense away. Cancel this impossible debt. He is practicing exactly what he preached in the dust of Capernaum. He is looking at the people inflicting the maximum amount of trauma upon him, and he is choosing to tear the heavy papyrus scroll in half. He is taking the crushing weight of the 10,000 talents and absorbing it directly into his own chest. The cross is not a tragic execution of a misunderstood rabbi. It is the royal treasury swallowing the cost of a bankrupt world. You tally every slight, every unpaid emotional debt, every sharp word spoken against you in a quiet room. When the sky turns violently black in the middle of the afternoon, the transaction is finalized. Jesus bows his head. The gospel writers tell us he Aphiemi his spirit into the dark. He releases it completely. And at that exact earth-shaking moment, in the massive woven veil inside the temple, the thick physical barrier separating the holiness of God from the contamination of humanity tears violently from top to bottom. The infinite debt is canceled. The violent, unforgiving architecture of Lamech's 77-fold boast is permanently shattered under the weight of a king who chose to bleed rather than collect. But knowing the ancient math has been defeated is only half the battle. Stepping out of the prison cell and actually dropping your own ledger is where the real transformation begins. A man forged a bronze sword in the dust, and the earth learned the math of vengeance. A fisherman stood on a Galilean road demanding a limit to grace, and a rabbi handed him an infinite number instead. A king looked at an impossible ledger of 10,000 talents and tore the heavy papyrus in half. A freed servant wrapped his hands around a debtor's throat and rebuilt the exact prison he had just escaped. An empire drove iron spikes through human wrists and demanded the blood of retaliation. A savior hung suffocating in the dark. We demand equity. And when we are wounded, we demand interest on the pain. Lamech is just the first man to put the math to music and absorbed the ultimate debt into his own chest. The thick veil in the temple tore violently from top to bottom, and the ancient architecture of vengeance collapsed forever. One number, two completely different kingdoms. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the hands around the throat. A man walks out of a royal throne room, completely free of a 200,000-year debt, and he immediately lunges at his brother over 3 months' wages. It is not because the small debt wasn't real. It was real. But it reveals that the human heart is so terrified of absorbing a loss that we will gladly walk out of a palace just to become a warden in a prison. If you are in a season where the ledger in your mind is keeping you awake at night, where the wounds are deeply real, and the debt they owe you is heavy, the king is not asking you to pretend it didn't happen. He is asking you to drop the paper. He is asking you to look at the 10,000 talents you were forgiven and send the offense away. Aphiemi, let it go, because the algorithm of vengeance will always demand more blood than you can afford to give. If this opens something in you, subscribe. Leave a comment, even one word helps. Share this. Blood is drying on his knuckles. The wind off the Mesopotamian plain kicks up the dirt around his leather sandals. But thousands of years after this blood dried in the dirt, another man will stand on a road in Galilee, with someone who is struggling to let go of an old wound. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. And may the God who absorbed the infinite cost of your freedom walk with you as you open your said fists, and give you the courage to walk out of the prison of vengeance for good. He will look at a fisherman named Peter, a man who is desperately trying to figure out the exact mathematics of keeping score. And he will pull this exact number out of the ancient past to shatter the ledger forever. To feel the absolute shock of what happens in that moment, you have to understand the weapon Lamech was actually building. Because he wasn't just forging a sword, he was building a prison. The human mind operates as a relentless, unforgiving ledger. When someone strikes your cheek, the instinct is not just to return the slap. The instinct is to shatter their jaw. You want them to feel the original pain, plus a heavy penalty fee for having the audacity to inflict it upon you in the first place. To understand the catastrophic shift Lamech introduces to the human timeline, you have to look at the ancestor he is comparing himself to. Generations earlier, when Cain murdered his brother in the field, God did not strike the murderer dead. Instead, the text says, God placed a mark on Cain. This was a visible boundary line, perhaps a physical brand on his skin, meant to stop the bleeding of the world. God decrees that if anyone kills Cain, vengeance, the Hebrew concept of nakam, will be taken upon them sevenfold. He is looking at his two wives, Ada and Zillah, and he opens his mouth to sing. It is the first recorded poem in the biblical text. That sevenfold vengeance was meant to be divine deterrence. It was a shield forged by heaven to prevent the ancient world from devolving into a perpetual bloodbath. God used the number 7, the biblical number of completeness and divine order, to place a hard ceiling on human violence. The Hebrew word nakam implies a restoration of balance. When God invokes it, it is to maintain the delicate equilibrium of a broken world. Lamech looks at that divine ceiling and shatters it. He looks at the bronze sword his son just pulled from the fire, the metal still radiating heat against his palm, and decides he no longer needs God's protection. He has a weapon. He has leverage. So he takes the divine number of completeness, 7, and magnifies it into an absurdity. Lamech's math is not a demand for justice. It is the architecture of disproportionate ruin. He is declaring himself a deity of his own making, a man whose wrath is 11 times greater than the Creator's. If you step on my foot, I will burn down your house. If you insult my pride, I will salt to your fields, so nothing ever grows there again. This is the exact moment humanity decides that true safety only exists when your enemy is completely eradicated. We have never stopped running Lamech's algorithm. We run it in global geopolitics, dropping munitions that echo the heavy strikes. He does not sing about the beauty of creation. He does not sing a lullaby for his children of Tubal-Cain's hammer, and we run it in the quiet, suffocating tensions of our own living rooms. When an argument erupts over a minor offense, it rarely stays proportional. We reach into the dark filing cabinets of our memories, dragging out cold resentments and past failures, piling them onto the table until the other person is crushed beneath the weight of a debt they can never repay. This mathematics of vengeance governed the earth for thousands of years. It became the default wiring of the human nervous system, an unbreakable rule of survival, and it remained completely unchallenged. Right up until the afternoon, a fisherman from Galilee decided to ask a rabbi a question about a ledger of his own. The dust kicks up on the road to Capernaum. Jesus is teaching his disciples about conflict. He is talking about what happens when the community fractures. You can hear the shuffle of leather sandals on the dry earth. You can feel the harsh Galilean sun beating down on their shoulders. Peter steps forward. The fisherman clears his throat. He has a question about the math. "Lord, how often will my brother sin against me? And I forgive him? As many as 7 times?" Peter thinks he is being incredibly generous. He runs the numbers. He calculates the risk. He builds a system. In the first century, the rabbinic tradition has a strict cap on grace, based on the prophets, specifically the book of Amos. The rabbis taught. He sings about a boy he just slaughtered for striking him. He is Lamech, the great-great-great-grandson of Cain, that a righteous man forgives an offense 3 times. You forgive the first insult. You absorb the second theft. You pardon the third betrayal. But on the 4th strike, the ledger closes. On the 4th strike, you retaliate. Peter looks at Jesus and decides to shatter the rabbinic ceiling. He takes the standard rule of 3. He doubles it to 6. He adds 1 more, just to reach the divine number of completeness. 7. He feels like a saint. He expects a commendation. He expects a pat on the back for his boundless mercy. But look closely at what Peter is actually doing. He is not offering grace. He is establishing a quota. He is asking exactly how much pain he has to absorb before he is legally, morally, and righteously allowed to reach for Lamech's sword. He wants to know the exact moment the ledger balances, so he can start collecting the debt. The human mind loves a countdown. 5 more times. 3 more times. 1 more strike, and I am free to strike back. Peter wants the countdown. He wants the safety of a boundary. He wants to know when the bleeding stops. The fisherman stands there, the sweat drying on his neck, waiting for the rabbi to validate his math. He wants Jesus to hand him a receipt, a clean, orderly system for managing human betrayal. If he has to forgive his brother 7 times, he lives in a world that has decided the only way to survive is to be the most dangerous thing in the room. He will keep a tally. He will scratch the marks into the dirt. He will carve them into the heavy wood of his fishing boat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And on the 8th offense, the sword comes out. Jesus looks at this fisherman. He sees the ledger in his eyes. He sees the ancient, toxic math of Genesis chapter 4 running through Peter's veins. And Jesus drops a bomb. I do not say to you 7 times, but 77 times. 77. The exact number from Lamech's ancient boast. The exact mathematics of human vengeance. Pulled across thousands of years of blood-soaked history. And inverted right in front of Peter's face. Jesus takes the ultimate formula for escalation and turns it into the ultimate formula for grace. The ledger is obliterated. The countdown is destroyed. But it is not just the ancient number that shatters Peter's worldview in the dust of Capernaum. It is the specific verb Jesus uses to explain how this new math actually works. When Jesus responds to Peter's math in Matthew chapter 18, verse 20, the English translations typically render his command simply as forgive. But the English word carries centuries of modern psychological baggage. When we hear it, we immediately think of finding emotional closure. His son, Tubal-Cain, has just figured out how to forge instruments of bronze and iron. The world is suddenly sharp. We think of the slow, agonizing internal work of convincing ourselves to not be angry anymore, forcing our emotions into submission, while we wait for the sting of the betrayal to fade. But the word resting on Jesus' tongue is the Greek verb Aphiemi. Aphiemi is a compound word, built from a pap, meaning away from, and hemi, meaning to send or to hurl. It does not mean to excuse an action. It does not mean to pretend that a wound never happened, or to manufacture a warm feeling toward the person who drove the knife into your back. It literally translates to let go, send away, or cancel a debt. In the ancient Greco-Roman world, it was primarily a legal and economic term. You would hear it shouted in the dusty, crowded marketplaces. When a heavy scroll of debt was completely nullified, you would see it written on tax documents, the dark ink bleeding across the rough papyrus to indicate that the crushing weight of a financial obligation had been permanently removed. If the realization that biblical forgiveness is a legal cancellation rather than a forced emotion is lifting a weight off your chest right now, you're exactly who this channel is for. Metal has entered the human story, and immediately, it is used to cut human flesh. Listen to the words he screams into the camp in Genesis chapter 4. Drop a comment and hit subscribe, because every week we dig into these original root words to find the exact mechanisms hiding beneath the English text. So the ledger is dropped. It appears 142 times in the New Testament, and its range is almost always physical. When the first disciples leave their boats to follow Jesus, the text says, they Aphiemi, their nets, they drop the heavy, salt-soaked ropes on the wooden deck and walk away. When Jesus hangs dying in the darkness of Golgotha in Matthew 27, the text says, he Aphiemi, his spirit. He yields it up, he releases it completely. That root changes everything about the command Jesus is giving to Peter. Forgiveness is not a feeling of peace you passively wait to experience. It is a legal declaration of a canceled debt. It is the deliberate, agonizing choice to take the mental ledger, where you have recorded every single offense, every ounce of Lamech's vengeance you feel entitled to collect, and tear the paper in half. You do not wait until the offender has paid you back. You do not wait until they have apologized perfectly. You hurl the debt away. By connecting the 77 of Lamech's vengeance to the Aphiemi of a canceled debt, I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for striking me. If Cain is avenged sevenfold, truly, Lamech 77-fold. Jesus is completely re-engineering the math of human survival. But Jesus knows that canceling a debt sounds simple in theory, yet feels utterly impossible in practice. So, to make sure Peter understands exactly what this tearing of the paper costs, he does not offer a theological lecture. He immediately launches into a story about a king, a servant, and a sum of money so unimaginably massive that it breaks the entire economy of the ancient world. The heavy bronze doors swing open. Guards drag a man across the cold stone floor of the throne room. Iron chains rattle against the polished marble. The king sits in judgment. The royal accountants unroll the papyrus scrolls. The debt is read aloud in the echoing hall. 10,000 talents. The number is absurd. It is a mathematical impossibility. A single talent is a massive block of silver, weighing roughly 75 pounds. It equals 20 years of labor for a common day worker. 10,000 talents is 200,000 years of manual labor. It is more money than the entire Roman Empire collects in annual taxes from all of Judea, Idumea, and Samaria combined. The man falls to his knees. He begs for time. He promises to pay it back.